nerve fibers in the brain could generate quantum entanglement. Okay, so the question becomes, in the past when we've talked about this, it's like, all right, so where does this sort of actual most rudimentary, rudimentary function happen? And what's actually sort of the basis for a quantum mind, this quantum cognition, okay? Well, check this out. So calculations show that nerve fibers in the brain could emit pairs of entangled particles. And this quantum phenomenon might explain how different parts of the brain work together. Oh, you don't say, which is incredible. Now, to note, this quantum stuff that, because it still is a vast sea of unknowns at this point, with all the stuff, right? What is it? Entanglement, which we always talk about, quantum immortality, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. There's a lot of stuff that really is, like we can't measure the velocity or direction and the actual space that this place is in, its actual spatial what do you call it? I don't know, but you get what I mean, right? There's a lot of quantum stuff that it's befuddling. It makes you wonder what the hell's actually happening. And I think what happens in the larger sense here is when you start to look at all the rest of this stuff, it becomes this quantum style stuff becomes like a placeholder, and Matthew in Colorado said this a long time ago. Shout out Matthew in Colorado. He very smartly and wisely said that, this quantum stuff, when we talk about not just consciousness, but the other paranormal aspects and some other just, the high strangeness of the world we live in, that the quantum aspect of reality, whatever this is, it seems to be a placeholder. It seems to be that sort of magical space between science and whatever the end of ends is, whatever that looks like to us, okay? And I think that's where we're at. I think, what's the Arthur C. Clarke quote, something about technology and magic and, being indistinguishable, except basically from your temporal point of view. Do you recognize it as technology, or are you so awed by technology that you recognize it as magic? And of course that plays if, you back to the old proverbial, you hand the caveman a cell phone fully functional and, he's going to probably break it and not even understand what the hell he's looking at. So there's all that, right? But then in the larger context, and you think about the quantum realm here and what kind of things we don't know about it and why these things are the way they are, the observer effect, the particle wave duality, the collapse of the wave function. All of this stuff is incredibly spooky. I mean, spooky action at a distance is what Einstein called that entanglement bit. But I think when you look at also all the rest of it, it's daunting because it does seem like magic, and in some capacity, sure it is, because there's that veil around it that we haven't quite cracked yet. We don't know exactly what all this means for the macro world, and how does this come together with the Newtonian physics of the days of yore. And of course we're still living in that world now, but what does it look like when you start to consider what it looks like when you combine those two realms, and how crazy does it get? Now, we talked about this kind of semi recently, but I think in light of this new article here, well, things are about to get weird, because think about it, like I said, we are one little discovery away, very similar to what we're describing in the article here. I'll read you a little bit of it so you know exactly what they're talking about. But we're one scientific discovery away from something like this, where it's exactly actual nerve fibers in the brain could emit pairs of entangled particles, which again gives it that sort of boost into the quantum realm, which means our quantum mind, quantum, consciousness, or quantum cognition, as I'm calling this tonight. And of course, entangled hearts and dreams, but we'll get to that as we go. I told you we weren't going to talk about the election tonight, but I do want to point out that regarding that type of thing, in the shiny objects and the things we're supposed to focus on, is one of the things that they say to not just, it's an old, sort of horrific military slogan, but it's also become like a political thing as well, where they say, go win the hearts and minds of the people, and right, you will prosper, or whatever, or you will change a republic into an empire, or whatever it is, right? Like take your medicine as it comes. But you get the idea. Like, we're supposed to as Mama Strange always said, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And this is, sort of that same idea. And so let me just read this real fast because this is important. So winning hearts and minds is a concept occasionally expressed in the resolution of war, insurgency, and other conflicts. And of course, I'm talking about the conflict of our mind tonight, in which one side seeks to prevail not by the use of superior force, but by making emotional or intellectual appeals to sway supporters to their side. Oh, interesting. Winning hearts and minds, as they say, right? And that's one we've heard a lot, quite a lot, in terms of basically manipulating the population is what that means. It's a very nice way of saying, well, if you tell them I'm here to take over the world, people aren't going to be very happy with you. But if you tell them I'm here to do all the things that you want me to do because I am for the people, then suddenly you start to see how, well, the world becomes a different place because the populist becomes powerful and winning hearts and minds in that capacity. And the reason I bring it up, and we'll get back to this now, is that this is exactly what we're dealing with in the larger context of our minds. Think about it. So winning hearts and minds specifically means entanglement in some capacity. It means that noosphere or the zeitgeist or just the ideas out there floating around that we're always talking about. But of course, imagine if some sorcerer or some wizard or some technologically advanced entity, and I say that because that could be transhumanist, that could be AI, that could be aliens, you name it, right? Back to the old non-human intelligence and how these ideas kind of come together. But you get some entity that's able to do these things. And think about it, if our mind works on a quantum level, then that means that we have entanglement amongst ourselves, which could explain a lot of things with the group stuff, right? Meaning, you get a person is smart, a group of people, they're stupid. Okay, which we've talked about quite a lot in this particular capacity. And, the herd aspect, the herd mentality, and why people are really caught up when, people around them are even doing terrible things. People get caught up, not even bad people, good people get caught up doing terrible things because of possibly this sort of entanglement effect. And that's the opposite of winning hearts and minds. It's causing a stampede and trampling your fellow humans for God knows what reason. Okay. So anyway, as we get into this tonight, like I said, there are no answers here. It's just ideas. All the disclaimers apply. I am just me. I'm not a wizard, contrary to popular belief. Shout out to Patrick in Massachusetts. Thank you for the call. Thank you for calling me Dr. Strange. That's awesome and hilarious. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not a wizard. I'm just me. And these are just ideas. And so if you come here for answers, you are in the wrong place. Find some political show where they will tell you all the answers, because I promise you all the political types, well, most of them anyway, know all the answers, of course. But we're going to get into this because this is absolutely wild. And let's see, where are we at time-wise? Okay, enough time to get into this. Now listen to this real quick. And then we'll take a quick break and then get back here and keep on trucking. So this is the idea from New Scientist. Once the brain creates entangled photons. Oh, wait. So okay, let me read. Okay. So back to the headline. Let's reframe this real fast. Calculations show that nerve fibers in the brain could emit pairs of entangled particles, and this quantum phenomenon might explain how different parts of the brain work together. Okay, there we go. So, okay, I want to just cut to the chase here and read you the best part. This is the best part. So Chen and his colleagues mathematically investigated one way in which quantum entanglement could originate inside the brain and give rise to extra fast communication between these neurons, sort of magically, auto-magically, as they say, right? And they focused on the interactions between myelin sheaths, that's myelin, protective coatings of fat molecules surrounding the fibers that connect neurons, and particles of electromagnetic radiation, or photons, produced within the brain. Such radiation hasn't been detected directly, but it has been theorized to originate in neurons' mitochondria as part of a cycle of chemical reactions that produces energy. Oh, those pesky midichlorians. They won't go away. Oh, sorry, I meant mitochondria. The researchers' calculations showed that when infrared photons collide with a myelin sheath, modeled as a cylindrical cavity capable of storing and amplifying that electromagnetic radiation, they would impart extra energy to the myelin's chemical bonds. The bonds would then release some of their energy by emitting two photons, one after the other, and many of the pairs would be entangled, creating, of course, this sort of entanglement fog around our head, of course, in the quantum realm that you couldn't see or couldn't detect or couldn't do any of that, right? Well, Yeah. So that puts us where we need to be. And so the question becomes tonight, is any of this possible? And do you think we're closer than ever with this type of actual scientific speculation, which floors me, by the way? This level, this is like troubled minds level scientific speculation. That are we closer than ever to actually cracking the key to quantum consciousness or quantum, what am I calling this? What's the name of it? Quantum cognition. And that's where we start tonight. A lot of ways to consider this and look at it. We'll get back to the entities, of course, and entanglement with not just each other, but entanglement with other entities, entanglement with other realms. Because if we are actually quantum individuals in the most mindscape sense, then surely there's entanglement in certain places we never dreamed is possible. And that's what's on my mind tonight. We're exactly where we need to be, so thank you for bearing with me as I ramble through this. I'm a Rambleosaurus Rex, as they say. We're talking quantum cognition tonight, entangled hearts and dreams. And see what I did there? I kind of took this old sort of a Hillary Clinton-esque sort of something she might say, so just incredibly contrived and one of those things that, you know, is probably fine, the old winning hearts and minds, as they say, and then turned it into something a little bit different, a little bit more MK Ultra for the masses, a little bit more. What would it look like in terms of actually brainwashing somebody through some sort of, you know, unspoken hypnosis or some sort of spooky futuristic technology with through the quantum mind or the quantum realm? It's that type of thing is very old school. It's, you know, hypnosis and sort of manipulating others, and all the rest of that stuff is incredibly on everybody's minds going back thousands of years, because everybody wants to be able to manipulate everybody else, right? Am I right? I mean, hey, this is where I manipulate you through my mystical Michael Strange magic to press the thumbs up button, through your sympathetic magic to maybe press us into the stratosphere. So while you have a minute and you're thinking about it, maybe press the thumbs up button. You see what I did there? So is it going to work? I don't know, but you know, you can ask. If you don't, right? If you don't ask, you don't get. But then also in this context of quantum cognition, if we're sort of, I don't know, merging these ideas together within our brain and then sharing them sort of in groups, does that explain that sort of group aspect? That, again, you know, a human is smart, a group of people are just dumb. So why though? Like, we get kind of locked up into this weird state of madness, like actual group madness. And do you think it has something to do with this same idea of quantum cognition? And like I said, the thing that was exciting to me about this is they're literally talking about this. This is from yesterday. This is July 31st when this hit. And so they're talking about this as, okay, so now we have some theoretical conceptions of what this might look like within the brain, emitting photons, entangled photons that now become, you know, kind of locked outside. Maybe, I guess probably the best way to put it would be these photons are now able to communicate through the veil, or, you know, sort of in this mystical space that is untouchable by human hands at this point. And so it's just a quantum foam or that type of stuff we always talk about, or you know, downloads from the muses, or, you know, to put it into sort of human terms or ancient terms. But it seems like this exact thing is a little bit different than we ever imagined. And if it is just entangled photons being sort of generated in the brain at scale, then this isn't magic at all, is it? I mean, surely not. But it does get weird. So a few things here when I was looking at this stuff. There's a paper that they cited in the actual New Scientist article. And again, I encourage you to read all this stuff in full if you guys are interested in it. Many of you are way smarter than me, and so you're into the science and, you know, understand it quite a lot better than I ever could. But go read it from the sources, because as usual, right, I'm just kind of a knucklehead on the internet with a microphone, as I always say. And I mean that in a nice way. I'm not really picking on myself. But check this out. So non-thermal and reversible control of neuronal signaling and behavior by mid-infrared stimulation, which is one of the ones they marked here. And they're talking about doing this in, you know, rats and mice and this type of thing to start us off. But again, back to where we began, is that we talked about this recently as well, probably a month ago. In the noosphere, or this zeitgeist, the larger context of what the quantum foam might look like, this whatever space would be beyond the veil, where all of these thoughts and all these dreams and all the human energy exists. What is it? Like, how does it mix? And does it mix with the animal kingdom, as we talked about when we did it about a month ago or so? But also, does it mix with these other sort of non-human entities? And that becomes the super weird, wild part. Because if you're talking animals and saying, well, do they contribute to this sort of quantum foam or whatever's going on in this space that we're feeling, then that would mean that it's possible that we're being influenced by even, our future selves. What if these sort of, photons entangled, as we've proven recently conceptually, at least through some of these great New Scientist articles and other articles, where they're talking about time traveling through entanglement as well, being able to influence the past from the future and things like this. Now, that's where your mind starts to get blown, because it's possible. All these things become possible. The Mandela effect becomes possible as us experiencing possibly the entanglement of one of our other selves, where in that reality, there is differences. Things are different. And not only that, if we're doing this collectively with the zeitgeist or the noosphere, or whatever this quantum foam ends up becoming when we discover it finally, if we do, again, speculative science, as they say, but not really science, more philosophy, but you get the idea, is when we discover this stuff, what does it look like? And are we actually sort of commingling realities all the time, which could explain a lot about the human experience as well. So not just the high strangeness we always talk about, but, sort of the confusion of the animal kingdom seems to be just fine in what it does. I mean, do you think that a cheetah or an elephant or a dog or a cat? Well, a dog or a cat's probably different because they're domesticated. And we've put our own psychosis on those poor animals. I love them anyway, but you know what I mean. I had a little fatty boy that was a little bit neurotic. But I'm saying, is there such a thing as a neurotic cheetah or an elephant with a depression problem? You see what I'm saying? Yeah, maybe, probably not as often as you would expect humans to have these type of issues. And so I don't know. So what does it look like in the larger context when you put all this together, and where does it lead? Because if we're talking about entangling entities and entangling the animal kingdom and entangling the human kingdom through this noosphere or zeitgeist or whatever the quantum foam, whatever it's going to be called, then we also need to consider the mycelium network, and we also need to consider non-human intelligence. And at some point, as I've always said, and I've been pointing this out very, very much so, often recently and over the last couple of years since the dawn of the AI systems, the large language models, is that non-human intelligence to me doesn't seem alien at all anymore. It's here, and it is a part of what we describe as these AI systems currently. And so, So anyway, when you bring it all together and think about entanglement of consciousness or, intelligence, non-human intelligence, certainly that plays in the AI realm as well. So how does that all fit? And when you, like I said, squint your mind's eye, I think we're on the verge of maybe one of the most incredible discoveries humanity has ever seen, or even considered to be true and real. But again, I'm just me. I don't have any inside information or any inside sources except for you guys. So what do you think about it? And that's where we're at tonight. So again, nerve fibers in the brain could generate quantum entanglement, and they're talking about them as emitting pairs of entangled particles or photons from particular parts of the brain, which would be incredible, which is basically us living in two realms at the same time. Sound ridiculous? Sound like this is the next level of a scientific discovery? Or does it sound like some bad sci-fi pipe dream that Michael Strange won't stop talking about? Love to hear your thoughts on this tonight. If you want to be part of the show, 702-957-1037. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that, and as easy as this. We got James in Michigan coming up. Thanks, buddy, for jumping in there early. Appreciate you. And how deep does it get? This really becomes the question when you talk about quantum cognition, and you believe this is real. Are we dealing with this, and is this what makes that sort of herd mentality of humans a thing? Or the animal kingdom different or separate? Or what about the mycelium network and the mushrooms talking to us? You've heard of that before, right? Like, what is going on with all that? Real, nah, or somewhere in between? Tonight we're taking your calls as we talk quantum cognition. Now, we're close. There's a conceptual science that suggests maybe, just maybe, very soon we'll discover our brains emitting entangled photons, which means what? Well, it means that all that spooky stuff from the past, maybe the quantum, let's say, is there a way to say it? The haunted quantum realm is all. This has all been magic, and it's all been technological magic that we just never understood until the modern day, of course, with quantum stuff. But also, as usual, I want to caution this type of thinking, because when you consider it, you gotta wonder how much of this is just sort of placeholder talk for literal magic, and or magic that maybe is a science that we won't know anything about for 1,000 years or something. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in the idea that we'll kind of crack the code of consciousness sooner than that, but who knows? Maybe it's far more detailed and let's say difficult to get at than I ever dreamed of as well. So who knows? Like when you're talking about something with no answers, there's definitely that chasm of between here and there. But what does it look like? And do you think that this is incredible that they're talking about actual calculations of nerve fibers kind of emitting entangled photons, and this is how our brain would actually sort of be able to kind of look past the veil, sort of past our own reality and into a space that is not just tiny and quantum, but also the key to unlocking not just our consciousness, but how consciousness commingles in a larger context. And of course, as usual, the questions become, how weird does it get?